So I wanted to enter Wolfie's competition, but we didn't have a globe large enough for the process, nor could I find one within our budget. So I used a couple of half balloons and some plaster bandage and made one. Then I drilled a hole top and bottom and mounted it on a stick. The half globe in the background is a reject. Then rolling it with the stick and holding a pencil near it, I marked in 10-degree latitude lines, and followed by using our inflatable globe, which I couldn't put a stick through, I drew in the continents. And here's my finished globe. Now I'm self-employed, so I had to do this after hours and on weekends, so I didn't have a lot of time to do this. I'm very pleased with the latitude lines. Considering the way I had to put them on, they worked out quite well. There's a few apologies to make though. Indonesia got a little bit stretched, so you're more a megapelago rather than an archipelago. And sorry Finland, but I wasn't going to do all of your fjords, I'm afraid. Sorry. And from those of you living in the top end of Canada, sort of, yeah, here be islands, basically. I wasn't going to do all of that. The West Indies, sorry guys, ran out of time in Panadol. And I didn't have time to colour in the continents, so you'll have to just imagine that the Earth is during the last great ice age, except the ocean levels are the same as modern day. I made a mini adjustable equatorial mount for our little 720 HD keychain camera. So this will keep the camera nice and level while the globe rotates, like that. All the while, hopefully keeping an eye on our model sun. Here we are in the driveway, down one end, with the car at the other end, with one headlight blanked off, and the globe set to Equinox. And here we have a set of markers down the terminator line between night and day, showing that it is even from pole to pole. And then as we go out into the day and past noon, into the afternoon, excuse me while I move around here, going into the afternoon, and then the end of the day. Again, night falling from pole to pole evenly in a 50-50 split of the Earth. And now here are a range of markers along the equator, and you can see, or more to the point, you can't see their shadows, because the shadows are beautifully aligned all along the equator. There are shadows being made by the headlight, but they're just all falling neatly along the equator. Now the little equatorial mount I made for the little camera is gravity activated, so it won't work on the globe being that steep an angle. So just to prove to you that changing the angle to horizontal like this does not affect its relationship to the equinox, the markers still throw no shadows outside of the equator. In fact, here you can neatly see the shadows cutting the putty of the pointer next to it in half as it goes along. Now, to determine that sun angle at local noon equals latitude, I took a folding steel ruler and put a masking tape sight at one end and a target patch further down for the shadow to fall on to know that I was pointing at the sun. I endeavoured to get the other half of the ruler at a tangent to the globe and thereby set the angle of the sun. Sorry for the camera work here. Once I was happy with my setup, I then took it over to a protractor I have to measure the angle. So I'm placing 90 along the lower arm of the ruler, the center of the protractor at the inside of the elbow, 0 is pointing at the headlight, and therefore we have the angle from there to determine our latitude, which in this case shows about 30 degrees, which is the latitude that I was reading off. I hope you'll forgive me for only showing one of these calculations. I did a number of them testing it out, and they worked, but while we were filming it started raining, and this was the last night before the end of the competition. I use a stick placed along the pivot of the equatorial mount, and then adjust that mount until the stick and the axis of the globe are parallel to each other. I have a plasticine counterweight on the other side of the globe to make it rotate more easily. I did oil the spindle of the equatorial mount, but you can see it's still a little bit shaky, but it works well enough. Sun setting on the 50th latitude, south, and sunrise. Sun setting on the 30th latitude, going through the night. Camera's still tracking to see the foot of the equatorial mount there. And sunrise on the 30th latitude, tracking all through the day, tracking the sun. Continuing into the afternoon, and here we go, setting on the 30th latitude, south. Here's a fun one. The sun's setting at 70 degrees north. Just scooting along behind the top of the world and back out again 70 degrees north. Due to the fact that I wasn't able to get the equatorial mount really close to the globe because of the size of the camera, it does mess with the perceived day-night proportions, especially when you're up at the top of the globe, because it can sort of see over the horizon and gives the perception that it's much shorter than it is. But as I showed earlier, it is a clear division of 50-50 day-night at the equinox. And a final one of the sun setting at 30 degrees north. And then rising 30 degrees north. All with a single axis equatorial mount. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope you've enjoyed it. And yes, I also live in Australia. Cheers.